editing my second book titled Dying with Regrets live here on social media. So I'm at the chapter now titled Do or Die. Today was the day that it was all up to me, and for the final time my loved ones were all gathered. During the early hours of that morning, specialists once again reduced the sedation which was keeping me in the coma. And now it was time for me to hopefully fend for myself. But whether I had the strength to pull through or not was out of anyone else's control at this point. My existence was once again back in the almighty hands of my Creator. Throughout the whole day, my loved ones all took it in turns to sit there and monitor me. They actually said that they were mainly watching the screen of the ventilator to see if I was breathing by myself or not. That afternoon, my mum and Nan sat by my side and talked to me as they usually did. But then something amazing happened which increased everyone's hope. They saw my foot begin to twitch. My Nan then leant down and said into my ear with her authoritative voice, "Ryan, open your eyes." There and then my right eyelid opened. This was an incredible moment for everybody, and my Nan rushed to the paramedics and told them what had just happened. But sadly, they were not as excited and told my family that it was more likely just electrical impulses causing my eyelid to open. Throughout that afternoon, I remained the same, only up until that evening when I began to respond. Each of my friends and family took it in turns to sit by my side and talk to me whilst I was unconscious. It was now my mum's turn to see me, and she said, "Ryan, wiggle your toes." And as she looked down at my feet, there were signs of microscopic movements. She could not believe her eyes, so she said it again, and to her disbelief, there was another tiny twitch from my toe. This was extremely promising, and after this eventful evening, I began to respond more and more each day. Over the following days, I managed to squeeze my mum's hand, and I was asked questions by my dad like, "Do you own a car?" and "Do you own a motorbike?" which I would either nod my head or shake my head to accordingly. This was such a fantastic sign of hope for all of my loved ones. Next chapter, back on Earth. Realising that I was once again back on Earth, awake and alive for the very first time, was a huge relief. As a young boy, I remember having conversations in the playground at school with classmates discussing how when you die, you see this bright white light, and then you climb up the stairs to heaven, and if God opens the gates to let you in, that confirms you are dead. As much as these were cool stories to hear as a 10-year-old child, I must say that I had always been an atheist when it come to believing in a certain God of such. But after what happened to me, I now truly believe that there is a much higher power behind this unbelievable experience called life. A creator, someone or something that is watching our each and every movement and listening to every single word we whisper. And no, I'm not talking about our smart TVs or our Alexas. I'm talking about a power far greater than any of us combined. And it knows way much more than we as humans will ever know. This all came to light, no pun intended, when I was gifted an out-of-body experience before finally waking up from my coma after doctors were adamant that I would never survive. I remember looking down at myself through the eyes of someone or something else. And there I was, laying there, absolutely motionless. Two large women would push me down a cobbled back street on a hospital bed. And they were practically shouting words at each other using an unknown language that I had never come across before in my life. And as I was pushed down the bumpy cobbled street, I remember hearing a silent voice repeatedly whispering the words, "They're gonna drop him, they're gonna drop him, they're gonna drop him." As I saw my body sliding down the bed and about to fall off, we then suddenly made a sharp left turn through a set of giant glass sliding doors. And I now watched myself being pushed through what I can only describe as a reception area, where all the staff were still speaking in this mysterious, unknown language. The lady at the desk was pointing towards her left at a solid brick wall, so both women turned me and my bed to their right and started to move towards that wall. I now watched from the other side of the reception, and all of a sudden they began to sprint and push me at full speed. Watching myself being pushed towards this solid wall, I began to brace for impact, and then saw the gurney collide with the wall. As it did, the wall hinged open like a giant cat flap, and my body fell through. As soon as my body fell through the portal, there was a transition where the eyes I was watching this whole experience unfold through suddenly got sucked back into my own body, and now I was back inside myself, sliding through pitch black nothingness, feet first. Sliding, I'll change that to falling. It was more falling. Sliding was at the end. Okay. I could see nothing but darkness all around me and could only feel a falling sensation surrounding my whole body. Could I change that word? This mysterious encounter seemed to go on for what I can only describe as forever, but only until I saw the small, bright, white, glistening outline of a square below in the distance, and I realised that I was falling towards this object. This is because as forever went by, it continually became much bigger and brighter. As I approached this bright shining silhouette, I remember it became so big and bright that I could no longer keep my eyes open. So I closed my eyes, and as I did, I then felt the soles of my feet collide with what I believe was another flap in the wall to yet another dimension. But this was in the opposite direction. I sensed the feeling of slipping down and out of a slide and then landing firmly on my back. Again, I was back hovering over my motionless body, and as I looked down, I witnessed a team of surgeons operating on my damaged head. But I felt no pain. It was only peace and pleasure in this alternative reality where there was absolutely no concept of space or time. There were no barriers or restrictions to this infinite universe which I was now in. They worked on me for what seemed to be forever, and whilst they were still talking in this unfamiliar language, there was suddenly total silence, and as I watched from above, the surgeons then began to dissipate. After they had all gone, I felt that same transition as these eyes shifted back into my own mind. So I opened my eyes, and there I was yet again, all alone, cold, laying there in the hospital bed, surrounded by just a white curtain. The sound of silence was deafening as I lay there looking for answers for what seemed to be forever. Out of nowhere, the curtains began to automatically open, and once again the same supernatural bright white light shone through with such intensity that it was blinding. Eyes closed, I lay there waiting, and once I felt it was okay to do so, I opened my eyes and looked out in front of me, and there they all were. Every single person I had ever met throughout my whole life, staring straight at me. Hundreds upon thousands of faces, as far as the eye could see, and the distance of those faces was prioritised depending on the level of love and importance. Right at the back were the faces of people I may have bumped into in the street as a child, and then somewhat closer my childhood school friends, all the way up to family friends, current friends, and then family members. Right at the end of my bed were the ones who meant the most to me: mum, dad, siblings and grandparents. And on every face I saw that there was something which really stood out. They all had tears running from their eyes while staring at me, silently sobbing. I began to talk to them, and it was like they couldn't even hear me. So I started shouting, but nothing come out. I tried to wave them, and they all stared right through me. It was like I didn't even exist. I failed as I tried to grab their attention, so feeling defeated, tears began to stream from my eyes, and I laid back on my pillow and then shut them. But as soon as my head hit the pillow, I felt the same presence being sucked back out of my mind, and in doing so, taking the bright white light and the whole experience with it. Eyes still closed, I felt darkness. I felt the darkness around me. Now my body started to warm up again, and there was a faint sound in the distance. Bleep, bleep, bleep. The noise I could repeatedly hear starting to intensify. First I thought it was the sound of my alarm clock, so I started telling myself, "Ryan, you need to wake up," because I believed it was a Saturday and I was going to be late for work. So I opened my eyes and looked around, and I realised that I was laying there in a room all alone. I wasn't sure if it was real life or not. Then I looked down to see tubes and wires penetrating my body, and with every bleep I felt my chest pump, which confirmed I was in fact alive. I was laying in the intensive care unit, and that bleeping to my left was my alarm clock. It wasn't my alarm clock at all, but it was the life support machine which had kept me going. Suddenly, all the memories of being attacked were dropped back into my mind, and it was like information overload. It was too much information to comprehend in that moment, and it instantly gave me a skull-splitting headache, to which again I cried myself to sleep. The next time I opened my eyes was the morning after, and it was to see all the faces of my beautiful family members actually stood there in front of me. I remember my mum standing there crying, and my older brother right up in my face saying, "I wonder if he knows who I am," just after hearing the doctor telling them that I wouldn't remember anybody's name, not even my own. There we go, I'm going to end that one today, my friend. Come back hopefully tomorrow for the next few chapters. Peace out, my friends. If you want to get yourself on the wait list, visit dyingwithregrets.ryannurse.com. Make sure you watch this one back. Bye bye, speak soon.